Good morning, friends. This morning we're going to be talking about the sun entering the sign Virgo. We all know Virgos. We can read qualities of the moment out of what people who have their sun at birth in that sign. And we're going to be talking about Virgo's perfectionist, organizing skills, their love of service, the help that they provide to everybody and everything, and the desire for perfection. So we have that as a backdrop. Now, I was remembering years ago, a friend of mine, Sylvia Willett, a yogi who lived in Kentucky, but was from England. Her mother had passed away. She was going back to England to bury her mother. Switching planes in New York, she ran into Elizabeth Taylor and Richard Burton, who became enamored with her and encouraged her to come and join them in their seating in first class. She was riding in coach, and she, being a good Virgo, just stuck to her task, said, "Thank you, but I have to do this my way." And so she did. But when she's recounting this to me, she was kind of puzzled why she didn't take the overture from somebody, from some celebrities, to expand her horizon. But it seemed to me perfect that she had her eye on exactly what she had to accomplish, and she needed to be able to do it her own way. And that is such a Virgonian quality. And during the time that the sun is transiting through the sign Virgo, is a time for us to examine, what do we need to improve? What is it that we need to focus on and bring to completion? And when to be able to say, enough is enough. Perfection in one larger sense of like a Pluto is an archetype. We're never going to have things in what would be the absolute perfect mix in anything. So where do we draw the line? Where is close enough, good enough? And how can we overcome the natural desire to just turn our back on the things that have to be done, feeling like, oh, it's too much? So this is a time period, this particular year, as the sun goes to Virgo, which we'll talk about in just a minute, where we have to be able to realize that we are limited by time, money, circumstances, talent, and so on, and can only do what we can do. But just because we can't do it perfectly doesn't give us an excuse to do nothing. So here we are on the morning of August 19th, 2025, taking a look at what has to happen over this solar month of the sun going through the sign Virgo. And I want to share with you the sign Virgo in the zodiac with the other three mutable signs. Here's Virgo, here's Gemini, here's Jupiter and Pisces, and Jupiter and Sagittarius. So Gemini and Virgo are the two places in the body, Gemini being the lungs, Mercury being the small intestines, where our body is making an exchange with the environment. We are deciding what belongs to us, what is part of our body, and what isn't. Mercury, the messenger of the god, always brings us to a point where we are learning, where if we are diligent, our consciousness raises. And Gemini gathers information, Virgo organizes it. And it's during this period of organization that becomes so incredibly important for us during this period. Now, I wanted to show you the chart for the sun actually entering the sign of Virgo, because I think it's just fascinating what is going on this year with the sun going into Virgo. See, the thing is, Virgo is an earth sign, and earth means tangible, means physical. The sign Virgo has to do with us coming into some relationship with the environment through our senses. So it's a time of great sensitivity to what goes on in the world around us. But when we look at the sun on August 22nd, 2025, at 4:35 p.m., going into Virgo, what do we notice? That the moon is almost on the sun, but it's in Leo. This is what's called a balsamic moon. It's just before we enter the new moon phase. So we enter it with the sun being the only earth sign, the only sign that is destined to touch the earth, to be, at that sense, practical, whereas the fire signs are enthusiastic and the water signs are emotional, and where the air signs are in the abstract arena. Virgo is the most practical, and the sun is picking up a square to Uranus and is in quincunx to Pluto and to Saturn and Neptune. So this aspect here, Pluto, Saturn, Neptune to the sun, is called a finger of God aspect. You can think of it as like a plow, all the energy from Pluto and Neptune and, of course, Saturn here, focusing on the sun. It is tremendously energizing for the sun, and it also is a tremendous burden, because the sun, picking up the energy of Neptune and Pluto and Saturn, has an obligation to bring home the bacon, to make something big and important happen. Virgo doesn't think about big and important. Virgo thinks about getting done the tasks at hand. Now, the square to Uranus suggests that the urge for freedom, which emerges sort of spontaneously, pushes us to be impulsive and to take chances. Again, not your typical Virgo energy. Uranus is in sextile to Neptune and Saturn and trine Pluto. Sextiles are considered to be very favorable, and the trine is considered to be, very positive. But we're talking about the three outer planets, the ones that move beyond the finite, that are tremendous forces for change in our life. So everybody during this time period, from the third week of August until the third week of September, will be under the yoke of what is necessary in terms of the actual practical determining influences, and at the same time trying to appease these energies that move way beyond what we would call practical, way beyond what we would call stepwise and logical consequences. Now, there's one final thing I wanted to show you in this chart before I move on. Mercury, which is the planet that rules Virgo, is still in the sign Leo. And when Mercury is in Leo, we tend to be more glued to our ideas as they occur to us as being more significant than other pieces of information. What goes on inside of us and what we come up with seems like it should be the truth, regardless of what the external facts say. And with Mercury in sextile to Mars, they work hand in glove. Mars is the planet of energy. It's in the sign Libra, which is one-to-one relationships. It shows that we cannot get our goals accomplished during this period completely working on our own. It requires us to reach out and be connected with other people who are of like minds, who are on our team and where we can participate on their life endeavors. Now, Mercury and the sun being the ego and Mercury being our thinking process, is they're in what's called mutual reception. They're in each other's sign. So they reinforce each other. So there is a shuttle diplomacy going between our ego attachment to our own thought process and to what data seems to be coming from the environment. I'm going to move on, but there's one other thing to take into account here, which is that between the sun here and Mercury, we have the moon. Anytime a planet intercedes between Mercury and the sun, it shows something that our thinking has to come to terms with. The moon in Leo, of course, can be grandiose and on display and all of that. But the moon in this position, rising just before the sun, meaning if we rolled this chart back to sunrise, just before the sun came up over the horizon, the moon would come up over the horizon. And the moon in that position, Mark Edmund Jones called it the prophet. And in our transiting sense, what that means, what we have here, is that we're seeing a picture of what the future holds. We are being able to see in a logical Virgonian way what the natural consequences of our actions are about. So it behooves us to pay particular attention to our own thought processes, our own visions, our own dreams, and to be honest with ourselves. I think that this is one of the most fascinating transits of a planet that I've seen, and so the sun going to Virgo this year is much bigger than it would normally be. So we'll see how this comes out. And I want to say that as we go through this time period, if we are honest with ourselves and we watch very closely to what our relationship is to things that go on in the environment around us, it gives us clues for how to fulfill the destiny that was given to us coming into this period. Everybody will have a different role. We all have a different seat in the symphony, and it behooves us to pay attention to what the conductor of the symphony is doing. So to fulfill our mission here, one thing that can be very helpful is to look at where Virgo comes in the grand scheme of the zodiac. Every season starts with a cardinal sign. Summer started with Cancer. Cancer puts out the energy for the entire 3-month period. And if we look at briefly here at the sun in Cancer, this is what this 3-month period was supposed to determine for us. Now, the sun and the moon are in sextile to each other in this chart. And Jupiter is conjunct the sun, rising just before it. America is a Cancer country. This has been a time of great influence and heightening excitement about what's going on in the country for the whole world. But also, the sun is, of course, square Neptune and Saturn in Aries. That's not particularly comfortable. Matter of fact, it puts a great pressure on us to be honest with ourselves about what our limitations are about, and to see what it is that we have to fulfill, our own personal destiny, and what role we play in the greater unfolding of circumstances in the world. Now, we could talk more about this chart, but I just wanted to, what I wanted to point out is that Taurus has to do with money, material things, the physical world, just like Virgo does. So Mars in this chart is in Virgo, and we're talking today about the effect of the sun going through Virgo. And in this chart, we have 4 planets in Earth. So we started coming into the summer with great promise of things to accomplish in the material world. But with Mars being trine the moon, and the sun being sextile moon and Mars, there's tremendous force in this. Now, if we take that into consideration, that this was the instructions, this is what we started out to do, and here's what we were given to do it with, which was the sun in Virgo as the only Earth planet, and tremendous input. It's like being in the basement of a big corporation as the mail clerk, and suddenly the CEO of the company and 2 people on the board of directors are calling us and telling us what we have to accomplish, which seems like, wait a minute, I'm not trained for the things that are being asked for me to do. And I'm sharing this with you because I'm saying, if you have that feeling over the next month, you're not alone. People are, what would we say, more stressed out than normal. But you know what? By paying attention to simple things in our lives, being grounded, being honest, being organized, and most of all, being truthful, we go through this period of the sun being in Virgo most expeditiously. It will be, I'm going to put the sun entering Virgo up again because I wanted to point out to you, we have the sun enters Virgo just the day before the new moon. So the new moon chart looks almost identical to this, except, of course, the moon and the sun are conjunct in the same sign. And there's tremendous force on it. Now, there is, at the end of the sun going through Virgo, we end up with an eclipse at the 29th degree of Virgo. So this year we have 2 new moons in Virgo, one on August 23rd and one on September 21st. And there's tremendous potency. So we are being asked to move beyond what we would normally think of as our jobs in life. Now, when you look around, what you will notice amongst your friends, members of your family, colleagues at work, people in your social network, or things that you just pick up from the news, or people that you admire in the public life. It isn't just saying people are changing. Well, as the Buddha says, life is impermanent. Everything changes. But this isn't just generic change. These are big changes. People taking different tacks in their life. And with the sun square Uranus, it is important that we keep our feet on the ground, and that changes that we make are not just to be iconoclastic. It's not just change for its own sake, but change that brings us to something that we admire about ourselves and about life, and that we can look back on and say, I'm glad I did that. And if you can do that and feel comfortable with your own contribution and say, and on my deathbed, I'll still feel okay about what I did during this period, that's a great thing. And if we are kind, loving, open, sharing, and tolerant of everyone else, we'll get through this period and feel great about ourselves. We'll be talking about a few other things having to do with the upcoming eclipses. There's two eclipses where a lunar eclipse on the 15th and then on the 29th, solar eclipse. And a lot of things happening as Venus is switching signs. There's a tremendous amount of activity in the sky during this period. And as the old Chinese adage goes, may you live in interesting times. And yes, people say it's a curse, but you know what? When we're honest with ourselves, would we have had it any other way? We're all doing our destiny, just like I'm watching the school children get on the school bus. I don't think that they were all saying, oh boy, I get to go back to school. But somewhere deep inside of them, their mind is a sponge. They're getting to soak up new things. They're getting the social activities that the school provides. So to be able to take our medicine as it comes during this time period and feel grateful for it, we can have a lot of fun. This is going to be a great month, and I will see you in a talk coming up soon. So have a great day, and thank you for your time this morning. You take care.